Saturday before in the Panto at Dunstable, and it was amazing. I saw Ryan last year, Ryan Maloney, who you probably know very well from working with him. He was brilliant as well. And sometimes they bring Americans over to England, and some of their Panto skills are, how do we say, limited. Well, I would say yours are fabulous because I didn't know you're a singer as well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I've been known to warble. I have my rock band waiting room, but I've also for many years done music theatre. So yeah, it's a great place. That's what's so wonderful about Panto. It combines lots of different skills, dance and singing and acting, and there's still a certain amount, even though it's very over the top and lots of fun, and you're there to scare the kids and have fun. You've still got to bring a bit of truth to the performance, so all your acting skills are required. In terms of, I think for a lot of people, the traditions of Panto aren't necessarily as well understood from performers from other countries. And I was very blessed when I grew up as a performer. I was trained by performers who had their traditions in the English rep system, and so I learnt my stagecraft from people who had done Panto all their lives. So I was pretty blessed with that. And I've always worked with fantastic performers. I mean, here in Dunstable, I've got the wonderful Steve Hewlett.
I know he was with me last week. I've had Andy was on with me a couple of weeks ago, and Lolly, and I've also had the two young ladies, Holly and Eleanor, with me. I was at the competition where Holly and Eleanor, get my teeth organised, were picked, and it was an absolute amazing show. You're blessed with some great performers at the Panto, and it is a wonderful show. It's Robin Hood and the Babes in the Wood. It's at the Grove Theatre in Dunstable, right through to the 4th of January. And if you want a ticket, I think you have to get your backside into gear, because I think they're selling very, very well at the moment.
They're selling exceptionally well, and so it is one of getting along. I mean, the Grove is a spectacular asset for Dunstable and Bedfordshire. It's a beautiful theatre. It's about an 850-seater, I think. Even though it's sparkling modern, it's built in a traditional style. So when you're in the theatre, you feel like you're in an lovely old sort of opera-style theatre, which really adds to the ambience of the performance. But of course, it allows the stage is big, so it allows for all sorts of wonderful tricks and flying and all sorts of marvelous effects. So it's a stunning spectacle and a lovely thing to do, obviously, in the cold and bringing the kids down and enjoying a day.
Yeah, get them out of the cold into the warm theatre. But you've done TV as well. I mean, I know you've been doing Neighbours for the last 20 years, but you started, according to my research, you started off in a police drama in 1982 called Cop Shop.
That was my first big TV job. I did 18 months on a show called Cop Shop, which, quite ironically, Terry, a young actress by the name of Jackie Woodburn joined the cast to play my sister. And many, many years later, of course, she joined Neighbours with me as my wife. So it's funny how the world works.
It's spooky, like.
We became very, very close friends when we did Cop Shop and the police drama, and then all those years later, I was thrilled to bits to find you playing Susan Kennedy. But
you also played in The Love Boat. How did that happen?
We were just talking about this the other night. It's amazing. The Love Boat came to Australia and they shot two 2-hour sessions using lots of big Australian names. I certainly wasn't a big Australian name, but I was cast. I played the fiancée of the extraordinary Morgan Fairchild, who was in Falcon Crest.
Yes, remember her.
And only just last night at dinner, I was chatting away to a friend, and they said that they were very good pals with Linda Gray. And I said, I'm sure Linda Gray was on that same Love Boat episode with me, and Linda, of course, I believe, is in Panto down at Wimbledon Way. So it's extraordinary the way the world turns. It was a marvellous experience of working with all those American actors, like Jim Neighbours was on the thing, and Lloyd Bridges was on the boat with me, and it was just extraordinary. Every time I went to dinner, it was like being in Hollywood. Amazing.
But you were actually in Neighbours as another character before you sort of signed up to be Cole Kennedy, weren't you? You Greg Cooper.
Indeed, I played a mechanic called Greg Cooper.
Greg Cooper, yeah.
That was a really interesting time for me, because I was doing a lot of theatre. I didn't really know much about Neighbours. I knew the show. I'd seen it on telly, but I didn't really know much about it. So I came in as a bit of a fill-in character for 3 weeks, and I got to work with Kylie just as she was releasing Locomotion and all that sort of time. It was the heady days when it was huge in the UK. And they asked me if I'd like to stay on for a year to do Greg Cooper for a year, and I said, no, I'm doing Shakespeare instead. So I came back 7 years later to play Dr. Carl. I'm rather glad I did. I think I love playing Dr. Carl Kennedy, and I think that character's longevity is probably born out of the fact that he's not sort of just a run-of-the-mill character like maybe a young mechanic might have been. It was a terrific. I think it was a terrific choice by me. But who knows? Who knows what the future may have held? You may be talking to me now saying, you've been Greg Cooper for 27 years.
Yeah. You've been, I say, you've been in it 20 years. You're not sort of frightened of being typecast as being a doctor at all, or that part? Some soap stars do get very sort of worried about being typecast.
Well, yes, I mean, obviously there is always going to be a thing that certain sectors think. It's not so much typecast, Terry. I think it's more that there are some sectors they might sit back and say, we can't put him in this film because if he's in this film and he walks on the screen, the whole audience are going to go, oh, look at that, Dr. Carl Kennedy. So it'll take them out of the film. So I think there are some times where if you've done something for a long time, it cuts you out of certain work. But ironically, it opens you up for all sorts. Last year, I shot a little movie which was part of the Trop Fest Short Movie Festival in Australia, which is an international thing as well. And I shot a little film in a character role. It got to the top 16. It was enormously enjoyable, and I got so much feedback from people who saw it. And it's that kind of thing, you're invited to do quirky projects because they would like your name to be on them that really test you. And so it's enormous fun that way. I'm blessed. Yeah. I don't, in no way would I ever worry about what Dr. Carl's done for me in terms of typecasting because the character of Dr. Carl has opened so much up for me. Not least of all, of course, the opportunity to do pantomime.
Yeah, it's great. Have you ever been sort of mistaken for a real doctor? If you're in a situation where, on the plane, somebody's ill or something, and they tannoy for a doctor, and somebody says, "You're a doctor." Has that ever happened?
On a plane, I'd have to put a bag over my head just to be absolutely sure it didn't happen because I couldn't do a damn thing.
I know.
That'd be embarrassing. My children call me Dr. Dad.
Oh, really?
If there's any illnesses, they come to me and they say, "Oh, Dad, I've got this thing," and I go, "Yeah, right. Okay, I better organise you a doctor." Although, ironically, it's amazing how much you do pick up in terms of understanding. I go to the doctor says, "I'm going to give you such and such," and you go, "Oh, okay." You don't think, "Oh, what about this one? Have you heard about this one?" And he looks at you like you're a fool and goes, "Don't diagnose yourself. Don't you be doing that."
Yeah, I mean, Panto's quite a heavy old schedule. 2 shows a day, sometimes more. It's quite an intense period. It's a couple of weeks, 3 weeks. I mean, you must be fit. I mean, that is heavy for a lot of actors, but I guess with the filming schedule of Neighbours, that you're probably used to that.
Panto's a different beast altogether, really, because it's very repetitive. Obviously, you're doing the same show, but it's also there are very little breaks in your day. It's quite what's the word for it? It's incessant, and so you've really got to get yourself mentally fit for it. It's not just a physical thing. It's also you have to turn your head. So when you walk on stage for the third show in one day, you're giving as much to that performance as you gave to the first performance. It's very, very important. Basically, you've got to walk out there going, every single person in this audience is paid as much as anybody else. Yeah. They deserve the absolute best you can give them. And you've really got to keep yourself in tune to do that.
It must be for sort of young girls like Holly and Eleanor. It must be a real culture shock because I couldn't think of anything. It would be really hard for me. I've done a little bit of stage stuff, but I do comparing, and it's sort of one off. Done. It's not like, oh, I'm doing it at 11 o'clock, now I've got to do it again at 3 and then again at 7. I would think, oh, no. It would be I'd find that very hard. So, but I guess when you do the filming, that must be sort of part of the sort of thing, because you probably do a little bit, then you have a sit down and then you do another little bit and then sit down.
You're quite right. There's the old actor saying, I can't remember who said this, but the wonderful quote that says, I do the acting for free. I get paid to wait, and that's really absolutely true in television. You know, you do spend a lot of time sitting on your backside waiting to do something, and then suddenly someone walks in the room and says you're on, and you have to be absolutely
switched
on
on
and fired up. So that's again another kind of mental
and also
process required there.
I've spoken to a lot of people in the panto in the last couple of months, and they all say the difference between doing a TV show and doing a live show is you've got the audience there, you get instant reaction, instant gratification as such as well. Whereas I don't know how far you film Neighbours in advance, but you sort of if you've got a big scene in Neighbours, it's going to be sort of months before it hits the screen, and people stop you in the street and say, "Fabulous show last night," etc. But people are there in the theatre, and if you are fortunate enough to meet them out in the car park or in the foyer afterwards, you get the reaction, and you get the reaction while the show's going on.
You're absolutely right. It's the television is a little frustrating that way without audience. You've only got the crew sitting there going, when's lunch? You think you're being as funny as a wheel, and nobody's laughing. But that's as a result of that. I've always had I've always insisted on spending a lot of time in my connections with fans. Through my website, through my Twitter and Facebook. I'm always talking to fans because. Fans of Neighbours, because getting that feedback is so important. I recently did a story where I had a porcelain pig called Elvis that Susan hated and she was trying to get rid of, and I've been besieged by people. People come up to me in the street, they want to tell me how funny they found that story, and that's joyous for me. I go out of my way to meet people. At the panto, I always try and come out to the foyer to say hello to people after the show, because the audience is. I wouldn't have a job without them,
That's very, very true. And I think some people forget that, and I think, that is an important thing. I think there's a fine line between, should we say, being stalked. I heard a story about a celebrity who was at the gym and somebody stuck a bit of paper over the shower top, when he was having a shower. Can you sign this? I know what I'd have said, and I think he was quite polite and said no, but, Anyway, let's talk about this band. They fascinate me a little bit. A band called The Waiting Room. I guess that's a play on words from the Carl Kennedy thing, or was that before?
Yeah, it's a little bit of that. It's also a little bit of the thing about, as I said to you, I only remember the waiting. Even when you're doing band gigs, you spend all day touring.
Yeah, for an hour and a half on stage.
You're all day on the bus, you do your sound check, then you wait, and you wait, and you wait, and then eventually someone comes in and says at 1 o'clock in the morning you're on. You play your gig, and you have a fantastic time, and then it's back on the bus, and off you go again. And so the whole waiting thing is almost a crucial part of my life. I'm so used to it. But the band that I formed in 2005, when I met a couple of musos in Perth, in Melbourne, very, very accomplished musos, Tommy Rando and Chris Hawker, and we formed in 2004 actually. And then almost immediately, the UK booking people sort of said, hey, the universities want this band to tour. And I think everybody expected that I would just be rubbish like Carl Kennedy and it'd be a laugh. They were coming for a crack. Yeah. But it turned out, of course, with the wonderful musos I've got, we make a good festival and a very entertaining show, and people loved it. And so for year after year, they keep coming back, and we keep going playing the same shows, same venues. It was really marvellous time, and unfortunately these days financially I can't bring the waiting room over, but I do play with a band over here called Lucas, who are fabulous as well. But we're off to Reykjavik, in fact, Terry.
Really?
In January we're going to play a gig up there, because there's a lot of Neighbours fans in Iceland.
Well, that's one place I'd love to come. Can I carry your cases?
Sorry, say again?
That's one place I'd love to go to. Any chance of carrying your cases?
Yeah, you can be a roadie.
Okay, that's great. We'll sort that out afterwards. I mean, on this with the waiting room, you do your own songs, but you also did a cover of Smokey's "Living Next Door to Alice," but you changed Alice for Susan as a tribute to Jackie, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, it's just a funny little sort of ditty about. So it's actually had two incarnations, different lyrics at different times. It's a little ditty about the fact that they're basically saying that no matter what's gone on in Carl Kennedy and Susan Kennedy's life, he must be doing something right because he married Susan 3 times. And people love it. That particular song from Smokey has a traditional audience response, which is very funny, a little rude.
Yep.
And of course they do the same thing in this version. It's actually, ironically, it's one of the biggest selling iTunes songs I've ever had.
Yeah. Yeah, I know you also, when you were over here in 2007, it's a long while ago, 7 years ago now, you did a cover of Wonderwall from Radio 1's Live Lounge.
That's right, yes, that's right, with beautiful Jo Wiley. She got a live lounge, which